It is the state saying, we recognize that the Constitution is a compact, and the terms of that compact have been breached, and all of our behavior in the future is going to be conditioned on the recognition of that breach of the contract. And that's very similar to a notice of breach of contract. So what's the next step? Well, the next step might be the Healthcare Freedom Amendment, for one, which is soon to be on display and deliberated upon in the Kansas legislature, which will say, as a matter of state constitutional law in Kansas, you have the right to purchase or not to purchase health insurance. That will set up a conflict and hopefully set up a challenge to the Federal Health Care Act bill if it ever becomes an act. Another step in the future will be next time state legislators saying, you know what, thanks but no thanks, federal government. We're not going to give up more of our sovereignty to take more federal dollars. That's another action that SCR 1615 sets the groundwork for. But more than that, it's also just a shot across the bow of Congress, because when Kansas does it and other states do it, and they are doing it, that is something that has not happened in this country in this manner in a long, long time, where the states are saying, you have taken our power and we are making an official statement that this has got to end. And so I think it is important to deliver that message, and I think the message will be delivered. Now, let me wrap up by saying we're at a very interesting point in our nation's history. You have a president and a Congress that have tried to impose what I think everybody recognizes is a radical agenda. Radical in the sense that it is a, in the president's own words, transformative change. That this health care bill, for example, would be a major step down the road towards socialized medicine. It would lead to a series of events that would bring much of America under the control of a federally administered health plan. This is a huge step. And we see all kinds of other things, the kind of deficit spending we've never seen before. And so the question is, are the people going to take it? Well, if you look at the opinion polls, the people of America are not in favor of what's happening right now. And so you see some extraordinary things happening in the halls of Congress. You see, for one thing, bills being written entirely behind closed doors. Entirely behind closed doors. Whatever happened to C-SPAN, Mr. President? Whatever happened to broadcasting those negotiations so we could see who's got a seat at the table? And the drug companies will be at the table, but they won't control every seat. Well, I'd like to see who got a seat at the table last night, Mr. President. You've heard about the all-nighter that they pulled. Who was at that table? I'd like to know. Well, we don't know. We have the government that was supposed to be a government of transparency deliberating in the dark, deliberating behind closed doors. That is a shame in the United States. That's problem number one. Problem number two is then once they create that bill behind closed doors, they do something else that I've not seen, at least in my career watching Congress and looking at the Constitution. They put the bill on the floor of Congress and they say, guess what? 48 hours, we're going to have a vote. 24 hours, we're going to have a vote. 36 hours, we're going to have a vote. They put time limits on a bill that's 2,000 pages plus long. Right. Now, as Congressman Tiahrt can probably tell you, his colleagues are not reading the bill. There is no way anyone can read the bill in that short period of time. I've read provisions of the bill. I can confess, I haven't read the whole thing. I've read chunks of it, but one of the reasons you can't read it in 36 hours is because the bill isn't written in layman's terms. The bill is written with reference to existing federal law. So a provision says, Section 357 of Title 18 of the United States Code is hereby amended to read. Well, you can't know what that means until you go to the U.S. Code. And so you have to read the bill with a computer in front of you and constantly be cross-referencing. There's no way you can digest that in 48 hours. Really, there's no way you can digest that in a week, if you're honest about it. So here we have the United States government passing a transformative bill that would realter a sixth of our economy, the most significant bill since the Social Security Act of 1935, doing it on a clock and no one reading it? That's the kind of thing that happens in dictatorships. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that happens in countries that barely have a stable government at all, countries in the third world. That is not the kind of thing that happens in the United States of America, the greatest republic on the face of the earth. It is an embarrassment, and it is a true shame that this is being done. And then finally, you have a third problem with this rushing. In order to rush to a vote, there's now a recognition that the people of America don't like what's in this particular bill and don't like what's in a number of other bills that Congress has been pushing so quickly. And so now they're trying to defeat the will of the people. And of course we see this with what's going on just the last few days, because stranger things have happened, but not many. The People's Republic of Massachusetts is apparently about to elect a Republican senator. And it's and that's why they're rushing. They're rushing because in case that happens on Tuesday, they want to make sure that the bill gets passed before then. Never mind that there's no longer a 60, the people no longer express a 60-vote majority or a supermajority in the Senate, but that doesn't seem to matter to this administration and to the leadership in Congress. They want to get this thing done, rammed down our throats, and then let the people speak in 2010 when it's too late to do it. That is the kind of things that are going on right now. And finally, let me say this. There's one more piece to the puzzle, and that is, if you look at the votes that are cast, it is down to 1 vote or 2 votes in the United States Senate. And that's why elections are so critical. Al Franken cast the 60th vote. Well, as you all know, there were lots of election shenanigans that went on in the state of Minnesota. And the front line in protecting the integrity of our democratic machinery, our democratic process in this republic, is the Secretary of State's office. You've got to have someone who's vigilant to ensure that the law is followed. Not to ensure that one side wins, but to ensure the law is followed. It's a level playing field so that the will of the people is expressed through their representatives and not distorted by manipulation of the election process. And I think a very good case has been made that there were some distortions that occurred in Minnesota that led ultimately to the selection of Al Franken as senator for that seat. And so I say that these are all pieces of a larger puzzle about protecting the U.S. Constitution. Our 10th Amendment is under threat. The commerce power has been distorted. The spending power has been distorted. Our electoral processes have been distorted. And we are standing up and saying, stop. Thank you very much.